Hello and welcome everyone, Laha here, and today I want to let you guys know about Legacy of Valor, an upcoming in-development medieval RPG that last weekend I flew out to Prague to attend an exclusive preview event where I got a chance to get hands-on with an early demo build of the game. So today I'm going to share my thoughts and impressions about the game so far, the event, which was pretty darn awesome, and also let you guys know that Legacy of Valor's Kickstarter is now live. So if you enjoy what you hear about the game and you want to find out more, wishlist it, or even support it, then feel free to check out the link in the description. But let's just talk about the event itself to start with. So it was held at a castle on the outskirts of Prague. Probably going to butcher the name, but Brandy's Nab Lebum was the castle, and you should hopefully see some really cool drone shots that the Legacy of Valor team have very kindly shared. They were filming all weekend of all the various medieval activities. They welcomed us in with plenty of Czech beer and food and a fire show. And they had medieval reenactors just sparring and fighting each other and just generally trying to smack the crap out of each other all weekend long. It was really, really cool. Actually, on the Sunday, it was kind of a bit of a public open event, and it was really cool to see a lot of the Czech games media really kind of quite hyped up for this event and for the game itself. Lots of people very keen to check it out. But yeah, there was axe throwing, archery, loads of food. I think I'm now about 50% goulash, which I am 100% okay with. It was delicious. And yeah, the Czech beer was very lovely as well. That was very nice. One other thing I did want to quickly mention is that while we were at the event, they had a full orchestra come in and actually do a live recording of some of the game's soundtrack, which I thought was really, really cool. I'll try and include a few clips of it that they shared with the B-roll. But honestly, that alone sounded absolutely incredible. And yeah, really kind of medievally, choiry vibes to it. Very epic, very dynamic, and yeah, I can't wait to hear more of what the game soundtrack is going to be like if that is the standard that they are aiming for. But yeah, really, really cool to see them use an orchestra at the castle for this event as well. Onto the game itself, which is the kind of the key part here. So I'm just going to go through some of the key info about the game and share my thoughts as we're going through some of the info. You can find all this over on their Kickstarter. They also have a Discord, which they're really active in. They're very keen for kind of like feedback. They've already earlier on this year had a playtest, I think, with members from their Discord community, or some of them there, with kind of a closed playtest. So they're very kind of community focused. And very keen to get a lot of feedback from their community as to how they want to see this game shape up and develop going forward. So Legacy of Valor is aimed to be a grand single-player and co-op medieval RPG that blends castle and settlement building, territory management, and large-scale battles with a sweeping narrative into one unforgettable experience. It's set in a realistic Middle Ages realm torn by ambition and conflict, where you'll rise from nothing only to risk it all and see if you can survive or whether it all crumbles around you. Will you be able to rebuild your ancestral castle and protect your people as a beloved lord, or will you burn the world as a dreaded warlord? The choice will be up to you. And when the game's story final chapter is written, it will then open up into a limitless sandbox. So for me, that initially, it sounds very similar to a degree to something like Mount and Blade 2 Bannerlord, where you can engage with the narrative story, and then at the end of that, essentially, it lets go of your hands and says, enjoy the sandbox. Obviously, Bannerlord, you can kind of dip in and out of that a bit more. This sounds like you'll be engaging with the story more, and then once you finish that main story beat, kind of campaign and quest and what have you, you'll be able to then just dive into the sandbox experience. That sounds really cool. So already from that, you're probably already thinking, hang on, that sounds about like 3 games in one. Yeah, that's very much the impression I got from speaking to the dev on this. I should say it's being developed by a chap called Philip, and he's clearly very passionate about this title and everything that he wants to achieve with it. Kind of solo dev to this point. I believe that part of what they're aiming to achieve with the Kickstarter is obviously build a bit more of a team around Philip himself so that he's not just doing all of it. And to expand out, obviously, depending on where they hit and where they land with their funding with the Kickstarter. My understanding is, though, they've already had a very successful round of funding locally in the Czech Republic. So this is about taking it to kind of the next step, the next level. But yeah, those 3 games in one, very much getting that Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord vibe from this title in terms of kind of the narrative story and then out into that sandbox campaign, that experience, that medieval RPG, but also that Bannerlord experience from what they're aiming to achieve with massive battles. But I would say actually they're looking to take it further than what you can do with Bannerlord, almost to a Total War scale. Now, it wasn't available in the early access demo build that I had a chance to play, but they did discuss with me a stress test they'd done recently with their game and you know, what they've been working on within the engine as well. I think they're using Unreal Engine for this. They were able to have 2,500 men all fighting, battling it out in grand scale, all in kind of one sequence. So that's the kind of scope and scale that they're aiming for with having those big, massive clashes. I got to fight a few kind of skirmishes with a much smaller party, but even that was really enjoyable. So that on a much bigger, grander scale is going to be pretty crazy, to be honest, if they can pull that off. Obviously incredibly ambitious what they're trying to achieve here. But yeah, so you've got that Bannerlord-esque, almost Total War warfare side of it. Then you've got the medieval RPG element, which definitely getting kind of Kingdom Come Deliverance, medieval dynasty vibes about it, about how you're interacting, not just the kind of a standard RPG, but also how that's then blending into the castle and settlement building, which almost feels a little bit Manor-Lordsy, to be honest. But also some of the medieval dynasty vibes coming back in there with having to go and get wood and supplies for certain projects within your castle and management of it, constructing additional defenses and things like that, ready for if you then become under siege. And I assume obviously you'll have some key story beats that will align with that. And then also it will be fairly imperative that you do develop your castle and your fences up when you then get kind of launched out into that open sandbox world. So yeah, incredibly ambitious in the scope and scale that they're going for. But if they can pull it off, that's going to be absolutely incredible. So yeah, obviously like pretty cautious about what they're going to actually be able to pull off, but very excited to see what they can actually deliver upon with this. So dive a little bit more into some of the kind of core features. So it aims to combine that deep strategy, role-playing, and open world exploration, as we talked about, that essentially those 3 games in one. You'll forge your path in a number of ways. So you'll have your opportunity to build and manage your stronghold. You start from the ashes of an ancestral castle, and you have to rebuild it into a mighty fortress. Expand your village into a thriving town, constructing workshops and farms. Manage resources to sustain your growing realm. And every building has its place, from the blacksmith to the barracks. It's not just cosmetic, so they're trying to really say that your choices are impactful, and what you choose to develop are going to be very impactful as well. It's also vital to the economy of the game and the domain's prosperity. So can you create a castle town that will withstand the test of time and attack throughout the story and the sandbox? That's kind of the broad aims there. And then on top of that, you'll also need to lead armies and engage in epic battles, where you'll be commanding your own troops in massive battles against bandit hordes, rival lords, and even armies of the crown. Train knights and footmen and equip them with weapons that you've crafted and devise clever tactics. So whether you're defending your castle walls in a siege or leading a cavalry charge on an open field, hopefully for me it won't be leading a cavalry charge, because you guys know what I'm like with cavalry. So we'll stay defending the walls for me. But yeah, combat in Legacy of Valor is very visceral and intense, and that's really kind of a big aim of what they're aiming to focus on. And while the demo build didn't obviously have any of this large scale stuff in, that is probably going to be an update that I will be very keen to dive back into to see how they're developing that. I mean, we've seen a few kind of short video clips and screenshots of what they're aiming to achieve with these large scale battles, and that looks really impressive, looks really cool. But yeah, I'd be very excited to actually get hands-on with a build that shows that and has that playable, because again, that the scope of that, what they're trying to achieve with those battles, is very exciting. Yeah, try and prove your valor on the battlefield and watch your banner soar over hard-won victories. Then, obviously, onto the RPG kind of pillar of the game. So, shape your story. Legacy of Valor is driven by a strong, choice-rich narrative. You're the author of your character's fate. Will you be a just ruler loved by your people, or a ruthless tyrant feared across the land? Key story decisions lead to branching paths and consequences. Decide how to deal with scheming nobles, how to respond to the challenges to your honor, and whether to seek revenge or redemption. Your reputation will precede you, and NPCs will react to your deeds, and the world's state will be changed based upon your actions. Every choice writes a new chapter in your legacy. So this is where I really got the kind of that Kingdom Come Deliverance kind of vibe. I mean, often there were still elements in, say, Kingdom Come Deliverance where you're still very much railroaded down a certain path, but you can affect small elements of how things are perceived or different approaches. It seems like Legacy of Valor are trying to take that to the next level to really have very big, massive, impactful changes, not just in the narrative, but also the world around it and how you inhabit that and how you are seen and perceived as a character within that. So again, very ambitious, but also very exciting if they can make it all work. And then you've obviously got crafting, trade, and the prosperity of your settlement itself. Experience authentic medieval life beyond combat and castles. Craft your own weapons, armor, and provisions from raw materials. So this is more of like the medieval dynasty kind of influence inside of things. And then trade surplus goods with neighboring villages and towns to earn coin or favor. Manage your settlement's economy, hold feasts to improve morale, hire craftsmen, and balance the needs of your peasants and nobles. A thriving domain will attract settlers and perhaps envious rivals. Can you keep your people fed and your coffers filled, and your enemies at bay? I almost like, to be honest, with some of this, I'm also getting like Stronghold vibes into it all, with just all the little bits interlacing and all having a role in the kind of public order of your settlement. It's going to be one heck of a management, kind of trying to keep all that balanced. And then, yeah, finally, the endless sandbox adventure. After the main storyline reaches its climax, the journey is far from over. Sandbox mode lets you continue to play Legacy of Valor with no restraints. Continue expanding your territory, undertake randomly generated quests, hunt legendary bandits, or wage war on neighboring provinces. Become the architect of your own medieval saga. Forge alliances, conquer lands, or simply wander the open world, righting wrongs. In sandbox mode, the world remains dynamic. New challenges and opportunities will keep emerging. Write your own endless chapter in the annals of Valor. Ambitious, ambitious, ambitious is certainly the tagline I would put for this title. Is it too ambitious? I guess we'll have to wait and see what they're actually able to pull off. But this is one that I'm going to be diving back constantly every time they announce updates. And obviously, if they start doing early access builds, I'll really be keen to see what they actually manage to achieve of trying to combine all of these elements. I mean, these are all elements of games that I'm already a big fan of and that I love, and it kind of makes sense. Yeah, why not try and combine all these things? But is that too big of a project? I guess time will tell. But I hope truly, be optimistic here, that it does pay off for them, because this honestly just does sound really incredible. So, viewers, do you like medieval games? Because this seems to be the mother of all medieval games all in one, at least with what they're trying to achieve. So if you do, feel free to check out the link in the description to their Kickstarter, which is now live. Obviously, a big thanks to Philip and the Legacy of Valor team for inviting me out to the event and getting a chance to get hands-on with the demo build. So the build that I got to play, you essentially had a few kind of RPG choices, bits of discussion at the start. You were in a little camp. You were a lord of some sort. It wasn't really explaining your origin too much, but you were with your small little company of 4 or 5 guys, and they were following you around there. You were hunting down an enemy lord that had betrayed you, and seemingly the crown. And there was, within the kind of narrative, the revelation that the king's army was marching its way to a castle to besiege it, and you'd been sent out in front to scout out the terrain. You come across a little village, and the villagers are attached to the enemy lord's castle, such that the one that you're there to take out, that has betrayed the king. So I don't know how much of this kind of story that they crafted for the demo is going to be in the final game, or whether it was just an example of the type of sort of dynamic narrative that they're going for, but I really enjoyed it. But yeah, it seemed like your Lord character had once been a true and close brother to this other Lord, and the betrayal certainly ran deep within the dialogue. But yeah, you find out that the village isn't happy with what the Lord has done, betraying everybody else. So the village is pretty much on your side, and they ask for you to try and spare the village from being destroyed by the king's army. So you dispatch a messenger to tell the king's army to avoid the village and leave it be. They just want peace. They don't want trouble. In the process of that, there is a small enemy patrol that comes across the village and discovers you and your party there, which you then have to dispatch. So you kind of went through an early combat tutorial. I would admit, I was impressed at how large the demo map area was that you could explore through. Lots of different terrain, like forest and open plains and hills and stuff that you could all go over, and it all seemingly ran really, really smoothly, really kind of coherently within the combat system. They were still working on developing the combat. It was currently kind of an action-based combat system, but they're looking into develop that further into a more of a directional Mount and Blade style combat. What sort of combat system do you prefer in your medieval games? I'm no doubt the devs will be keen to kind of read through some comments and stuff, and I'll certainly be happy to share what you guys' preferences are for combat. I've got to admit, I do feel like Mount and Blade, Bannerlord, and also Kingdom Come Deliverance 2's combat is pretty much what I kind of prefer, that directional stuff, mixed in with a few combos that can actually work pretty well in the case of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, but I think they need to be impactful and actually quite useful to relaying additional effects. Like if you do a specific combo that is designed to cripple an enemy, it'd be then cool to see that actually reflected in them then hobbling or being slower and stuff like that. But yeah, anyway, once you dealt with the enemy patrol, you were then tasked with infiltrating the castle while the king's army sieged the main front. You didn't get to kind of see that part of the siege, but instead you scaled around the cliffs behind the back of the castle, which was actually really nicely modeled, really cool. And you scale up a small opening in the castle defenses, you fight through a few guards, and then you have this big final showdown with the enemy lord. And in fact, here's a little kind of CGI cinematic they've got of that initial confrontation.
If I knew it would end like this, I'd never have fought for you.
Betrayal from a friend cannot be forgiven, only punished.
I didn't betray you. I did what had to be done.
We were brothers. That wasn't duty, it was your choice.
Saved my son! And everything else, too!
Everything except me.
So swords start clashing, and you have to try and defeat him. If you defeated him, then that was essentially the end of the little demo experience. I failed a couple of times, but some of the other guys that I was playing along with managed to take down the Lord. He was pretty tough. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of what sort of bosses or enemies as such that you face within this, what varying types. I've got to admit, it was really cool kind of infiltrating up into the castle. I don't know if they've actually got kind of some stealth elements planned or anything like that to give you even more options of how you want to go about your character, whether it is just going to be, you know, front and center as a knight smashing away through enemies, or whether there will be a bit more of a rogue stealth element option of how you can engage with things. But anyway, those are my kind of really early first impressions of this game. Obviously, it is launching into Kickstarter right now, so I will be very much following this along, see how the Kickstarter journey goes for the game. And I hope they're able to achieve all their incredibly ambitious aims. They do have a Discord, where, as mentioned before, they're incredibly active, incredibly keen to engage with their community. So even if it's not something you want to support right now because you're wary of Kickstarters and things like that, then maybe join their Discord if you like the sound of it and see how things develop. But yeah, that's the kind of the end of this video. This kind of first impressions of the game, and obviously their Kickstarter announcement. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think it sounds amazing? Too good to be true? Too ambitious? What would you really like to see? If this could be the perfect medieval game, what would you really like to see? Let me know down in the comment section. But until the next one, hope you've enjoyed. Take care, and ciao for now.